Hey guys, welcome to the 9th video in the Python programming tutorial for beginners. In this video we're going to talk about functions in Python, and I'll tell you a bit about why functions are so important for us in Python and just in general in programming. I'm going to show you how to parse arguments. You can either pass one or multiple arguments to a function, and I'll show you when to use a function and how to set up your own function. So let's move into computer. So we're now in the Jupyter notebook. And first of all, we're going to talk about functions and how we set up functions and define them. And in the first example here, I'll just clear all the outputs. In the first example here, we define our function like this, where we def and then we give it a name to our function, and with these two parameters and then colon. And in this case, we call our function hello, and the only thing the function will do in this example is print out hello coding library. And to call a function, we just type out the name and these two parentheses, and if we print this out and call the function, it will print out hello coding library. So that's the basic function and how to set it up. But we can also have like parameters to our give parameters to our function, and also have a return value. So in this example, we're trying to add two numbers. So we define our function first, which is called add, and then we add these two numbers, which are parameters. And then we can have a variable here, which is our result, and it will be equal to the first number, the first parameter here, plus the second parameter. And then we add these two numbers together, stored in result, and then we return result for the function. So when we call the function down here, add, and then we pass these two arguments to the function, the return value will be stored in this variable, and we can print it out like this. So the sum will be 5, which is right because we add 2 plus 3. So a parameter is the variable that is listed inside the parentheses in the function definitions. So these twos up here will be parameters to the function in the function definition up here. But when we call the function down here, the values we're passing to the function will be arguments. So that's the difference between a parameter and an argument. In functions, we can also have arbitrary arguments. So when we define our function up here, in this case we just define a function called channel names, and then we can pass arbitrary arguments to that function, so arbitrary channel names in this case. In this case, we're just printing out the second part, so this will be the second argument to the function we will print out. And in this case, when we call the function with three arguments here, the first one there, the coding, and the third one library. And if we print this out, we will get the second part, which is indeed coding. So we can also pass arbitrary arguments to a function if we want to do that. We can also use keyword arguments. So in this case, we have the same name for the function here, channel name. And then we parse these parameters up here, first, second, and third. And then when we call our function down here, it doesn't matter what order the arguments comes in, because we're using the keywords here. So in this case, we can like the third argument here, it could be the first, like up here, but because we're just saying first equals library, so the first parameter up here will equal to library. So if we print this out, we'll get the coding library, even though we parsed arguments in another way. This leads to the next example here, where we have arbitrary keyword argument. So we can also, if we don't know how many keywords arguments we want to pass to a function, we can also like just use these two star symbols here, where if we just had arbitrary arguments in an ordered way, we use the single star here. But in this case, we can have like this function will just print out the last part of the channel name function, the channel name parameter up here, and then to the channel name we call the last. So we check for like if when we call the function down here and we have an argument that is called with the last here, we check if that exists, and we print it out. So in this case, when we call this channel function here with these two arguments, we'll get the last element here, which is indeed library in this case. With functions in Python and in other programming languages in general, we can use recursive functions, which is pretty good when we like have to do some kind of math and some other recursive problems. And a recursive function is just a function that is calling itself inside of it. So in this case, we're trying to do this recursive function to get the factorial of an integer. So first we define a function up here which is called factorial, and we parse and parameter x to our function here, and then we check if x is equal to 1, because then the factorial would just be 1, so we return a 1. Else we return x times factorial x minus 1, and then factorial here will be a function call of the same function, so it will be a recursive function call down here. So this is a function that will call itself inside of it. So in this case we're just taking the factorial until there's nothing left. So in this case, if we print this out, we will take the factorial 3. So first x will be 3, and we then multiply it with 2 and 1, and then we get the factorial 6, and then the result of the factorial will be 6 when we take the factorial 3. So in this video we have been going over functions in Python and just the basic stuff of how to set up a function and how to return values and use the parameters in a function. And we've also been going over recursive functions a bit, and we're going to use functions and recursive functions a lot more in later videos when we're going to make more complicated and complex projects and also programs. So this is just the basics, and we're going to go over more in depth of functions in later videos. So that's it for this video, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell notification under the video so you can help me grow this channel, and we can also get more videos in the future. So thanks for watching this video, guys. See you in the next one. Bye.